Yeah, really excited. We're on and past UT Martin. We got that game done yesterday. Man, a hard fought game. You know, a lot of some negatives, some positives, a lot of teaching moments and learning moments from it. And obviously, I think the telltale sign of that game was timely and costly penalties on us. We've got a lot of things that we have to clean up, and we've got to teach our kids a little bit differently on a couple of things. I had a screen block on Jesse that just a really bad situation for him. It kind of just a little different deal. They got him for a block in the back, so we had to go back, revisit that, and figure out a way to recoach that and reteach that so that doesn't happen again. And the pass interference call at the end of the game, just trying to figure out a way to reteach and recoach and figure out a different way of maybe guarding that guy in a way that doesn't happen to us again. Just some things like that. So, but the kids were great yesterday, and we got a lot of work accomplished. And now we're moving forward to Eastern Illinois, which obviously, man, this is an awesome opportunity for us to get to go to their place. I think they're, I don't know, last time I checked, they were 18th or 13th or something like that in the country. So it's a ranked opponent. Obviously it'll be a horseshoe game on the wall. We'll put a horseshoe up there if we're fortunate enough to do so, and should be a lot of fun. It'll be the same travel as we did for Illinois, so the kids will be very used to it, staying in the same place that we did when we played Illinois. Really looking forward to this week of practice. May change a couple of things, the way that we do some things during the week, just because of the point that we're at in the season, and try to shake it up a little bit for the kids. And then we'll get on the bus, we'll head up there, and we'll go to work.
From a transverse property role, SEMO beat them. Austin P played them really close. Do you look at those tapes and see things that you can maybe execute from an offensive and a defensive standpoint?
Sure, yeah. Obviously, we do that versus everybody, and do it different ways. Everybody's got their own way of doing it. And defensively, they've got their own way of doing it. And offensively, we have our own way of doing it. But, we'll look at some things and try to figure out some ways that we can attack them, And one thing we've got to do offensively is I think we've got to slice and dice, consolidate some things. I thought that our call sheet was too big going into last week, and it's funny because the off week and game week going into last week's game, I kept on saying, one thing that you have to do as a coach is you have to caution yourself when you get a bye week not to put too much stuff in, and man, you have this check and that check, and lo and behold, I didn't think that we did that going in, but after watching the game Saturday, there were a couple of things that we either did do or did not do that kind of makes you scratch your head a little bit, and you could see the confusion. So we're going to limit some things that we do offensively. Defensively, on the other side, they were kind of the opposite. They moved the front a bunch. They did a couple of things defensively that we have to do right now. We're not a team that can just sit in a certain defense and just say, hey, here it is, come attack it. We're not that way, and I thought that those kids handled that awfully well last week. So we're going to try to continue to grow and develop that way defensively. And then special teams wise, going into it, the biggest thing we've got to do is we've got to start having some explosive plays in our return game, and especially kickoff return. That was pretty abysmal, I guess would be the word. Last week there's just nothing to it. Punt returns a little different. Obviously, your biggest thing on punt returns is just to get the ball back to the offense. But we got to start having some explosive plays there, and our punt unit's fine. And then kickoff, we had our kicker that made 3 tackles last week, so we've got it, and obviously that's cool. I mean, the players loved it. They're all high-fiving Sappington. I assure you Sappington didn't like it because that ain't what kickers like to do. But it's like I told him, I said, hey, you kick it in the back of the end zone every time, you won't have to tackle nobody. But we've got to improve on that. So we'll look at the film and figure out how we want to attack all 3 of those phases.
From a secondary standpoint, how do you go and reteach that? Nigel Walton looked like a good clean sweep, got the pass interference there. Devontae Wade, you're smiling. What did they tell you on those 2 calls?
Pass interference. That's pretty much it. I don't know. That's the trick. I guess that's the reason why they call us coach. We'll look at it and figure out what we can do differently and what those kids can do differently, and and go from there. We'll try to put those kids in the best successful situation that we can right there, and we made them understand. Now on Sunday we told those guys, listen, we're not mad at you. We're not mad. D Wade, man, he was really, really upset at himself because that was a third down stop. That was the last drive that could have been a big third down stop, and he gets that penalty, and that's a corner's worst nightmare other than having somebody jump over your head for a touchdown on the last play of the game. And so he was really upset about that, and we told him, said, listen, there was, at that particular time with the tools that we had given you, there was nothing else that you could do. Now as a coach, it's our job to sit in there and dissect the film and figure out, hey, can his hand be here? Can his hand not be there? Can he turn his head faster, or whatever the case may be? So we'll get it figured out. That's why they pay us the big bucks, I guess, as they say.
What did you see from Mario McGraw that's a lot different type of
He's explosive. He's got some explosiveness to him. He's very, very coachable. His first couple of starts and his first couple of carries, he's out running blocks. He had no idea the blocking schemes in front of him, and some of that was the way that we were coaching them. When they're that young, you say, hey, man, this is a run to the right, and it's in a gap, and then, you take it from there. And as we've progressed, we've been able to develop him a little bit more into, hey, this is what you're going to see up front. This is how it's going to be fit up. Slow down, be patient. Every young running back, when they get in there, all they want to do is run fast. They want to grab the ball and run fast and go for a touchdown. And, it's not always that way. When some of our running schemes, he's got to slow down. He's got to let some things develop, and he's done a nice job with that. And then the other thing is, the only thing that had held him back when him and DJ were splitting the reps when Mark Dotson got his injury was just, I guess I should say knowledge of what's going on, pass protections and some things like that. That's a little different from high school to college, and he's done a tremendous job. He had no missed assignments last week, so that's big, huge for a true freshman. No missed assignments, pass pro wise and run and screen wise. So man, we're just looking for him to keep on developing the way that he's doing.
Where do you think you've made the most improvements?
I think defensively, obviously, I think we've made vast improvements there. Just talking holistically here over last season and this season, I think we've made vast improvements there. I think we continue to improve from a physicality standpoint, which is big for me, offensively and defensively. I think that we continue to improve, from a physicality standpoint. We've improved in the run game because obviously, our first couple of games, our run game was atrocious. We balanced that out a little bit the other night. But I think the biggest improvement that I see is just from the kid standpoint, from the player standpoint, just development-wise, okay? Because when we started the season, you had a bunch of guys who we had no idea how they were going to react to certain situations. We had no idea how they were going to play in one-on-one matchups or, just different elements that can come up during a football game. They've now been through that a couple of weeks. We as a play caller, you get more used to the guys that you have on the field, both offensively, defensively, what they do well, what they don't do well, what situations you can put them in. A lot of people ask me, hey, why did you burn the timeout in the second half, UT Martin? Well, that's because when I clicked over to the defense, we had somebody in a personnel nightmare. We had somebody in a bad situation, and instead of it being a huge play, I decided to take a timeout. Hey, let's go get it. Let's go put ourselves in a better situation, and we did. And lo and behold, the guy that was supposed to be over the top of that route, he doesn't get over the top of that route, and they hit us for a 70 whatever yard gain. But just certain things like that that you start learning about your team, and I think the way that they've developed just from a competitive standpoint, their competitive nature, the way that they're playing the game, I think that anybody would agree with me in saying that we're a lot more complete team right now. When you watch us offensively, defensively, special teams wise, I'm not saying that we play all three of those phases good. We haven't put all three of those phases together yet completely in a game. But we do, if offense is struggling, our defense has found ways to turn the ball over and give us extra possessions. On the flip side of that, when our defense is struggling, our offense has been able to put some drives together and get them over there on the seats and take a load off for a little bit. We've been very, very solid in the kicking game up to this point. So we're just trying to continue on that path of developing from a program standpoint good football. Good football. That's what we're trying to do is develop good football.
Speaking of good football, is there anywhere Jesse Blackburn is not going to line up this season?
I hope not. I don't know. We're going to try to use him. I got one more year with him. Right. I got a couple more weeks with him this year, and so I'm going to try to get everything I can out of that old boy because that's what you do from an offensive standpoint and a defensive standpoint. You try to get your playmakers in the best positions possible, and obviously he's one of them. Jordan Gandy, we'll start doing some things with him, just trying to find ways to get those guys touches, because we have a touch sheet that we use at halftime. When we come into halftime, hey, who's getting touches, who's not getting touches, so let's try to get those guys more touches. And I will say one thing about that offensively, I think that's what KD's done a tremendous job of, is getting everybody involved. Every week you see a lot of different people touching the ball and things like that. So we're going to try to continue that. But obviously, Blackburn and Jordan Gandy have kind of separated themselves on the offensive side of the ball. And Mario McGraw a little bit too from our big-time playmakers. So we're going to try to keep the ball in their hands.
What's your reaction to the fact that your team's, had 3 losses by 14 points?
Like I said, I think it's just again, you can look at it a lot of different ways. I choose to look at it as we're developing good football. Bottom line is, you can sit here and second guess yourself. I heard Coach Simpson say it when I was listening to him one time about his losses to Cincinnati and Hawaii and those things and how close they were. And he said, are you coaching that good to put yourself in those situations, or are you coaching that bad to where you should be winning those situations? I choose to just look at it as our kids are playing at a high competitive level right now, from a standpoint, not a high execution level, but a high competitive level. Our coaches, our staff, man, I can't give those guys enough compliments. They go out there and they coach their face off every day. They're very passionate about these young men that we've got, and we're continuing to develop really good football. And we're not there yet. We're not even close to being there yet, but that's our ultimate goal. And if you continue doing that, eventually you're going to start seeing the W's pop up all over your schedule, and that's what we're waiting for.
Aside from a couple of penalties for both of these guys, Marquez Stanford and Demontre Wade have combined for 18 pass deflections in 6 games.
Yeah.
4 more games on the schedule, and more. How they could probably come away with 20, 30 pass deflections combined. Is that something have they developed into what you think that they can be?
Yeah, they have, and they need to continue to do that. We put a lot of stock into those guys, and we put them in some situations where they'll press some receivers, and we try to mix it up a little bit. Coach Boone does a tremendous job on the back end of mixing some things up. But those guys, they've kind of been our big play guys on from a secondary standpoint, and they have to be. The way it's built is, those safety guys, they're your hitter guys. They're going to come and you're going to roll them down in the box and do some things out there on the edge and put them in situations to tackle. And then when you do that, those corners, they got to be able to lock up some guys and run with some guys. And I think right now they're doing a tremendous job. Coach Wright does a tremendous job with those guys. And then Nigel Walton, a true freshman, you put him out there on that island, he's done just fine for us. So, and then you got Greg Willard, he's back in the fold now. He's kind of his whole career, he's kind of been an injury guy, and now he's back healthy, knock on wood. Just looking to continue that trend out there with those guys.
What was he doing this weekend?
I hope so. He's going to get looked at by the doctor tonight. He's got a little nerve issue in that shoulder, kind of in his shoulder and neck, and nothing major. It's just from a functionality standpoint. When you start messing with that nerve and you get that shoulder a little weak, because you can't that nerve doesn't allow you to raise that arm or have full functionality with that arm. You just get very susceptible to blowing that shoulder out, and it giving way for you. So obviously we're going to err on the side of caution with him, but the doctor will come and look at him this evening, and we'll either make a go or no decision on him for the rest of the week tonight.